Breaking news, we have a trade today in the NBA where Lonzo Ball is winding up in Cleveland for Isaac Okoro. We're going to talk all about that and dissect it, but let me know in the comments down below what you think about this trade. It's a very straightforward trade. These guys have nearly equivalent salaries, so it doesn't appear that there's anything else in this deal. I think this is a trade that is good for both sides ultimately. We're going to talk about it mostly from the Cavs side because they are the team that's favored to come out of the East and one of the top contending teams as well next year and all that stuff. But for the Bulls, just really quick, I do like this because they've got a logjam. They've got things they need to figure out in terms of how many guards that they have on that roster. They've got a couple free agent guards, and they also have decisions to make with their big three guards, right? Like, so Josh Giddey, I'd assume, and Kobe White. All those guys are players that I'd assume they want to retain. Can you retain and play all of them the minutes that you would want to play them? I'm not sure. But I think, that's a good problem to have with those three. But removing Lonzo from the equation just is one less piece that you have to worry about getting out there and giving him minutes if he's healthy and able to do so. But ultimately, though, there was also a report that Josh Giddey is going to be seeking about $30 million. I know it's kind of crazy, but Giddey was really good this season. And it's crazy simply because the number, we've said this a lot, but I think we also need to disassociate from the number because unless you're like super cap constrained, that's like 30 million is like what 18% of your cap space. So like a primary player in your team taking 18% of your cap space is not crazy, right? We're at a point now where in a few years that's not going to be much more than MLE. Like the cap keeps rising so crazily. But in this case, Lonzo is making 10 million, and the big deal for the Cavs side of things is that Okoro had that extra year of salary on his books. So for the Cavs, they get more flexibility in this because since Lonzo has that team option for 10 million next year, if things don't work out, they can just cut Lonzo and move on. Right. So that's kind of the situation that we're in. This is effectively a contract year for Lonzo because, again, if things don't work out, I can't assume that he will get retained. The only reason if things don't work out that he does get retained is so he can get flipped into something else, which is also okay for the Cavs, too, if they wanted to do that. In fact, they could get to the midway point of the year and say, hey, we've got this $10 million expiring. What do you want to do with it? Let's make a trade, etc. But ultimately, though, like I said, for the Bulls, I do like this, helping clear up the logjam, and Okoro's a nice 3-and-D wing for them on their team. But ultimately for Lonzo, I think this is a very low risk, high reward acquisition for the Cavs because it also helps them with Ty Jerome on a side note. Ty wasn't great in that Pacer series, but he was integral to what they did this year and was a huge, huge part of this team this season. Played 70 games, shot 44% on 4 attempts from 3 per game, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Like he was huge. He was in the running for 6th man of the year. He was a huge piece of what they did this season, and they obviously need to and want to retain him, and this will help them do so by getting them extra flexibility by not having to deal with that extra year of salary from Okoro going forward. Now, on the topic of Lonzo, like I said, low risk because there's a lot of flexibility to it, like I've been explaining, but high reward. So here's the thing with Lonzo. Health. Number one, health. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is health. Is he going to be able to play for you? Okay. Now, within reason, what are you expecting Lonzo to play if you're Cleveland? Do you expect him to play 50, 60 games? I think he could do that. Assuming he doesn't sustain other injuries, I think he can do that. I mean, Lonzo got to a point where we weren't sure if he was going to play again. He missed a couple of years of NBA ball. Like it's not unheard of for a guy to miss 1 year, but multiple years is a long time, right? So Lonzo did a great job rehabbing and coming back and being able to be out there. It's unfortunate because he's 27 now, right? He would be just now entering his prime, and he seemed like he was poised to be a guy that would give you like 16, 6 and 7 with good defense, maybe a steal and a half, a block. Like he was going to be a player that I thought would be, a really, really good player for a long time. Could basically like a Swiss Army knife, could do a little bit of everything out there. Good playmaker, everything, ball handler if you need that. So I think that while we're not going to see that version of Lonzo, I mean, it's possible, right? But if he's able to come back and be 80% of what he was previously, I think that's a good player. Now, Lonzo at this point only played 35 games last season. Because of the logjam that they had, though, Lonzo kind of got shifted around, but that's fine. I mean, he's 6'6", 190, big dude, right? Despite the fact he's primarily a point guard, you can put him at the 2-3 in this mostly positionless era of basketball and kind of just make him run out there. Prior to the injury, this is where things are crazy. Lonzo turned himself into a really good 3-point shooter. Like that first year after being traded to New Orleans, he was a 37% shooter on 6 attempts. He was a 38% shooter on 8 attempts the following season. That year, that 35 games with the Bulls, where the Bulls were really good, when they first got Levine, Caruso, DeRozan, where they were good for that first stretch of the season before guys started breaking down. Lonzo shot 7.5 threes per game at 42% clip. Like and he was putting up 5 assists and 5 rebounds. Like he got really good at shooting and scoring the ball at that point, right? And so, unfortunately, after a couple of years of absence, he came back and there's less minutes, less volume, all that stuff. But he was at 5.5 threes per game and shot 34%. And you'd like to see that number get closer to 36, 37. It doesn't have to be 40 freaking 2%. But if he's able to put up 5 or 6 threes a game and do that for you, he could be good. The reason I'm explaining this is because at worst, Lonzo can be a 3-and-D wing for the Cavs. And that makes that, assuming he's healthy and able to play, at worst, a pretty lateral move. But I think it has higher upside because Lonzo's the guy that can do more with the basketball than Okoro as a primary playmaker if you need him to do that. Now, I don't think they're going to be going out of their way to try to make that happen. It's one of those things that, like, if it happens, great. Or maybe he's your secondary guy on the court at any given moment because they do have a good amount of aggregate ball handling. But Lonzo, again, health. That's the most important thing. And so if you're the Cavs, you're taking a bet. But ultimately, like I said, you have outs. You could get to the midway point of the season and say Lonzo hasn't been playing. Lonzo's been playing badly, whatever it is, and say, okay, well, let's just offload him. A team could find value in that, right? And you're probably not going to want to take much salary back, but because of the Ty Jerome piece, but that's an option for you as well. Whereas with Okoro, you could have potentially offloaded him, but it would have probably cost you an asset to do so. So again, moving on from that, Lonzo was actually pretty good this year. They were -3 without him per 100 possessions, but +6 with him per 100. So they were actually pretty good on both sides of the ball in Chicago with Lonzo out there. And I think that can translate pretty well. Now, obviously, caveat is that was Chicago. I mean, they were feisty this year, but they didn't make it as far as they could have potentially made it, etc. But, I think that Lonzo was a huge piece of what they were doing this year and was out there when they were good, particularly when they had Zach earlier on in the season as well, where they were like, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're winning a little too much. They're playing these guys too much, all that stuff, right? And I think that could be a huge piece of what they do. But ultimately, though, like I said, I think a lot of this hinges on the fact that they want to retain Ty, and that gives them added flexibility and something that they can use to get that done. And I think that, again, Okoro is going to be a nice piece for the Bulls, too. We didn't talk a ton about him. I think Okoro fits into their timeline as well. That's another thing. He's a few years younger than Lonzo. And so while I said at worst, Lonzo could be, a 3-and-D guy similar to Okoro, he is somebody that's more akin to their timeline, with the other younger guys on the team. To be fair, Alonzo's still in that timeline period too, but 24-year-old, high pedigree, 5th overall pick in 2020. So I do like this acquisition for the Bulls too. And he's also a low usage guy, low turnover, low mistake guy as well. So they can plug him in and not expect for him to demand the ball or demand, set plays or anything like that. You don't have to worry about that. You just put him out there, stick him in the corner, and he's okay with that. And he'll get after it on the other end. So that's what you're hoping for if you're the Bulls. Because like I said, you've got a lot of playmaking over there already. But ultimately, let me know what you guys think about this trade from both sides. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I'm interested.